Recording in progress.
All right, good evening, everyone. We will call the meeting to order. This is the March 24th meeting of the Pacheco Stormwater District. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, so for our first item, we will call for public comment. This is comment on any issue that is not already on the agenda. And I believe Victor has a little announcement to read.
The Pacheco Stormwater District welcomes your comments. Each individual speaker will be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes. When addressing the trustees via Zoom, phone, or in chambers, please state your name for the record and in which you reside. Please address the trustees as a whole through the chair. If participating via Zoom, select the Participants tab and click the Raise Hand icon. If you're using a phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. When your turn arrives, you will hear that you have been unmuted. If you're participating in person at the chambers, please complete a speaker card identifying the item on which you wish to speak and provide your completed card to the clerk prior to consideration of the item. Speaker cards are available on the table at the entrance to the chambers. There appears to be no public comment.
Thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
A motion to approve the consent agenda?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Now we'll move on to the regular agenda. And our first item, 5.1, is we will be discussing the upcoming district election. And Victor has a few words to say.
Yes. So we have, as you know, 2 seats that are expiring on December 5th of 2025, currently held by Trustee Armando Alfaro and Trustee Ascona. Pursuant to the Stormwater District Act of 1909 and applicable sections of the California Elections Code, the district must hold a general election to fill the expiring terms. While the board previously reviewed and adopted a resolution, subsequent review by the election department identified necessary revisions to align with the resolution language and procedure fully with the election's requirements. Therefore, the board is revisiting and approving the revised resolution, which formally calls for the election to be held on July 29, 2025. The updated resolution includes precise details on candidate terms, candidate statements, nomination filing timelines, public notifications, and explicitly request election management services from the San Benito County and Santa Clara County Elections Department. Approval of this corrected resolution is required to proceed accurately with the Elections Department. So you have the resolution in front of you. Do you have any questions?
Well, there's a lot of very technical language in here about deadlines and so forth. I thought that we could also have just a more basic conversation about the process if one wants to run in this election to be a trustee. And maybe we should do that first, and then we can vote on the resolution.
Perfect. With us is our Chief Deputy Elections Clerk with the San Benito County Elections Department, Ana, with us.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ana. I'm the Chief Deputy for the clerk for the County of San Benito. And so I'm here to, as you requested, to just talk a little bit about the process to pull papers. That's what it's layman's terms called. And so I have also with me some packets so that you can follow along. And so I did bring a few, so I'll go ahead and give that to Victor. That way you can follow along with me. And so what you'll have in front of you, and I do have a third that I'll give up at the very end, so sorry about that. But if you don't mind just peeking over. So the very first one there is the election calendar for this election. At the moment for Wednesday, the 26th, excuse me, the notice will be due, which is what is before you. So the resolution is included within the resolution. And so once that's submitted to the elections department, we'll be able to be officially noted that you are calling for this election. Later on, we as in the elections department will publicize this notice of election in a general circulated newspaper. So in our case, that includes the Dispatch and it includes the Freelance. We'll go ahead and do that. And between April 7th and May 2nd, the declaration of candidacy and nomination papers will be open. At this time, if you could take a look at the pages after the calendar. So it starts with this here. This is a sample packet of what you would be expected to fill out when you come to our office. Now, I did bring this here as a draft format. You don't have to fill it out right now, or anyone who is interested. We will walk you through the process when you come to our office. We'll have someone designated to help you, walk you through it, explain to you what each of these documents means. And so these are all required due to election code. And so the very first one you see there is the Code of Fair Campaign Practices. So we ask that this is it's not a mandatory page, but we do ask everyone to review it and sign off on it. And this just means that you're going to follow and be observant of how you conduct your campaign. The next page is going to be the ballot designation worksheet. On this worksheet, it's just talking about if the election were to go to ballot, then the title that you would have under your name would be decided on this ballot designation worksheet. Now, you do not have to have a ballot designation. It is something that is optional as well. And so we want to make sure we offer you the same processes like any other election. So this will be available to you if you so choose to. The next page is going to be the candidate media sheet. On this sheet, we will ask for you to fill out, or any candidate that comes in, to fill out whether or not you would like us to share information during your candidacy. And whatever you share on here is the only thing we will share with media and the public and on our website. And again, all of this is optional. The only thing that we are mandated to release would be your name and the position you're seeking. But other than that, nothing else is mandatory on this page. And last, you'll see the page for the declaration of candidacy. Now, this page is required. This is stating that you are declaring yourself as a candidate and are running for office. We'll walk you through each of the sections, the front and the back. And at the very back, you'll see that there is an oath, and we will need a signature from you at the very end. And then once this is all completed, that really is all when you come into our office. We walk you through every single one of the steps. You let us know that that's what you're here to do. And we just wait until the close of the nomination period to see whether or not this particular election would go to ballot. And what that means that if we currently have 2 seats that are going to be open, if we have 3 candidates, then it goes to ballot. If there's only 2 or less, it would not go to ballot, and it would be what is called an election in lieu. So you would seek the position for those that have polled papers correctly.
So I did have a question about that, and we might have to get our counsel to respond to this. So even though there are only 3 of us, there are actually a potential of 5 seats on this board.
Mm-hmm.
So the three of us were appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
But it can be up to 5 people. So what if 3 people pull papers to be on here, then there still has to be an election even though there's a potential of up to 5 seats?
So for the elections department, you would just need to notify that in the resolution. So if you're seeking for three to be filled because there's up to 5 that can be on your board, then we just need to see that reflected on the resolution.
Okay. Is that is in the resolution? I know we talked about it before. Is that in the current version of the resolution?
We updated the bylaws to mention that the board can be comprised of up to 5 members. The resolution calling for an election specifically mentions that 2 district trustees are up for election and does not include any additional language that there could be up to 5 seats available. Well, 3 seats available, 2 seats available, 4.
There is also you could just fill the 2 that you're replacing for this time around and wait for the following election to take care of the rest. So it really is up to the board's discretion as to which way you would like to go. And of course, speaking with county council and seeing what their opinion is on it as well. But there is multiple ways to go about it. And as you know, because I know it seems like you're wanting to fill more board members, which is understandable. So I would say that those would be the 2 options.
Okay, thank you. I guess we can talk more about it when we decide to pass the resolution, to approve the resolution. So if anybody wants to pull papers, they have to file this paperwork with you by, no, it looks like
By
May 7th. May 7th. Well, for an incumbent. If it's someone who's not currently on the board, it's May 2nd, is that right?
It's the opposite. So incumbents have all the way up to May 2nd. If it's everyone that is not the incumbent would have an extension if there's not enough candidates, and then it would go to May 7th.
Oh, I see. Okay. So for people currently on the board, the deadline is May 2nd.
Correct.
And for anyone else, it would be May 7th.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I know. I had a question about, so if this does go to ballot, I know that there was some discussion about candidate statements.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And who would pay for that?
Yes.
Right? And I guess is it typical for the candidate to pay for the statement? Is that if they want? Okay.
Yes, so it is typical for the district to assign the candidate to be the one to pay for their candidate statement. However, we have seen districts where the district pays for the candidate statement. So it really is up to the board's discretion and what the resolution states. So the elections department will follow what the resolution states, and we will either bill the district or we will bill the candidate when they come to us. Now, candidate statements are due at the time of polling papers. So when you come fill out these documents, in addition to that, we will ask if you would like to have a candidate statement. And so the candidate statements, that if you were to come in and you're probably going to wonder how much is this candidate statement going to cost me. So I did an example breakdown that I brought with me. And so the way that it works is because this is a landowner election, this would be part of the number of parcels times 5 cents per voter plus the candidate statement base fee that we have. So in my example, which I used 2023 numbers in the same area that the stormwater district is part of, there were 259 parcels. So 259 parcels, we're counting that as 5 cents per each one, plus the 250 base fee. Your total for each candidate statement would be $262.95. So that would be due at the time of polling papers. Now, let's say, or any questions on that before I move on?
Now that is, a candidate statement is not necessary to appear
Correct.
on the ballot. You
Correct.
could just have your name on the ballot.
Yes, and in addition to that, if you decide to come forward with the candidate statement, and then at the end, when the nominations closes, we ask every candidate that has a candidate statement if they would like to keep their candidate statement. So let's say that we have 2 up and then only one of you has a candidate statement and then would like to pull out and no longer have that candidate statement, that option is available.
Okay. And is there any cost to pulling papers
There is not.
besides the candidate statement?
There is not.
Okay, great, thank you. That was all I had. So, does anyone have any other questions before?
Okay, thank you. I'll be here if you have any additional questions.
Okay, thank you.
It was just an example. I would need to check. Yeah, so that might not be accurate. It's just like an example. Okay.
And, oh, I did have one more question, I'm sorry. So this is the only, I know that we chose this date to coincide with the Pacheco Pass Water District elections, but the people in our district, unless they're also in that other district, they'll own, this will be the only thing on the ballot.
Correct.
If it goes to ballot.
Yes, yes. And if both go to ballot, then they'll receive both if they're eligible for it, because in both instances, they would have to be landowners. So if they're not landowners in both, then they wouldn't receive landowners or those that have been designated by the landowner to vote on their behalf.
And I guess if there's more than one landowner, each landowner gets a vote. Is that right?
Per parcel, or there's one vote per parcel.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, it's just one vote per
Yeah,
parcel.
or designee. So if someone's living there, for example, and the landowner designates and allows for the vote on their behalf, then that is able to be done as well. We would just need, the elections department would just need to have proof of that. And that comes in a variety of ways. It can come through a letter, it can come through as an email. And so we can talk about that as we get a little bit closer. But those are the 2 different options and how voting would be conducted and how you would be able to run. Because the same rules apply for those that are wanting to pull papers.
Okay, and the papers must be submitted in person at the elections office.
Correct, yes. We need wet original signatures on all documents.
Okay, thank you so much. That's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
Okay, so then we have this resolution to consider. Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, so this resolution as written only, even though it says, I see that it says, we are organized and operating, under the Stormwater District Act of 1909 with a board consisting of up to 5 trustees elected by landowners. But it's only authorizing the election for the 2 trustees that are up. So if we wanted to open this up to, in theory, have all three, well, I guess four positions actually, right? Open, right? It would be the two that are up and then two more. Would it be a simple change on this resolution? I mean, could we just change it now? If we wanted to?
I defer to our county council whether we could wordsmith the resolution so we could incorporate that piece.
Yeah, we can change that. I don't see why we can't. And I don't see why you wouldn't seek 5 rather than just filling the ones that are to be vacated or replaced.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I really think that that's the right thing to do. I mean, we may not get 5 people, but if there are 2 other people that are interested, in addition to the 2 that are up, the 2 incumbents, then I think we should open it up. I think that's the right thing. So, okay, so how do we change this then? Let's see, the second line says, whereas the terms of 2 trustees, namely trustee Armando Alfaro and Paula Azcona, will expire. Well, so maybe, okay, so Sean, tell me what you think about this. Maybe we just add an extra whereas in there. So we can
Sure.
keep that whereas the term of 2 trustees will expire, and then we can add another line that says, whereas 2 additional, what would you say, seats or positions on the board remain vacant.
I think that works. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So Victor, help me here. Are there any other, let's see, there are other references to 2 seats. Right? Let's see. I see under number 2, the 2 seats vacated by trustees Armando Alfaro and Paula Azcona will be filled by qualified candidates. So again, we can add a phrase there too. The 2 seats vacated by trustees and the 2 seats that are currently vacant. Are there other references to 2 seats here? I'm not seeing any offhand. I'm sorry, I should have read this before the meeting, but I didn't have time. 2 elected offices.
It looks like a total of 9 references throughout the resolution.
Oh, really?
About the 2 elected
Yeah.
offices.
Okay.
So,
And Chair, there may be timing considerations too, as far as are we replacing all, or are we addressing all 4 of those seats at the same time? I know there's rotation that happens. That said, I don't see why we wouldn't fill all those spots now, and then deal with that later. So yeah, I think that works.
Right, because that's what we did.
Right.
I mean, the 3 of us were appointed, and then we decided later which was going to be 4 years and which was going to be 2.
Right.
Okay, I guess we're just going to have to go through this paragraph by paragraph. Okay, so let's see. Is there any reference to it in paragraph 3? Candidates? I don't think so. Okay, paragraph 4. 2 elective offices. So we would change that to 4, right? There are 4 elective offices to be filled. And each candidate will pay for the publication of their statement. Let's see, number 5 just talks about the period for filing.
number 6 also mentions 2 seats in the last sentence.
A notice stating the date of the election. To publish at least once in the newspapers of general circulation, a notice stating that the date of the election and the number of offices to be filled, namely 4 members. So yeah, we would change the 2 to 4 again. Doesn't look like there's anything in 7.
Page 3, Exhibit 1, Section A.
Okay, at the next general election, so it'll be 4 elective offices will be filled, specifically the offices of trustees currently held by Alfaro and Azcona, and 2 offices that are currently vacant. Is that okay, Sean? Do you like that wording?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So this is an exhibit to the resolution, which is a notice that's going out to the papers.
Okay.
So it would be at the next general election, 2 elective offices will be filled. The offices of trustees currently held by Alfaro and Azcona, and the 2 offices that are currently vacant,
Right. Yeah, that works. Yeah.
which should be allowed.
At the end of your motion too, you could make a sort of a general instruction to sort of, we understand your intent here, but staff can work on revising the language to some extent to make it consistent throughout.
So I'm not going to have to go through all of this again in my motion?
No. Right.
Thank you. Okay, what about Exhibit 2?
Yes, it's going to be in the second sentence.
Yeah, the number of offices to be filled at said election is 4, specifically the seats currently held by and 2 seats that are currently vacant. That would be the same sort of theme if it were anywhere else. Of course, we won't be able to sign it tonight then.
Correct. It will be sent via DocuSign.
Okay. Yeah, because I think we need to do this obviously before the next meeting, right?
Correct. The deadline is going to be this Wednesday, so.
All right. Well, I think, okay, and then the same correction. The Exhibit 2, we have 2 Exhibit 2s.
One will be for San Benito County and the other one will be for Santa Clara.
Okay. All right. So same correction. Okay. So is there any other discussion of the resolution? Okay, and we already called for public comment. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make the motion, since it's a little complicated. I move that we approve the resolution ordering an election, requesting county elections to conduct the election, and requesting consolidation of the election as provided by staff, with the following change, and that is that the terms, the seats that are up for election, instead of being simply the 2 that are being vacated by incumbent trustees, will be 4. There will be 4 seats open for election. And that staff will modify the current resolution to conform every reference to 2 to be 4. Did I forget anything? Sean?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you for your work on this, Victor. And I'm sorry that we're giving you more work. So, okay, let's move on. 5.2, update regarding debris removal and levee repair projects. Steve, what good news do you have for us?
All right. All right, good evening, trustees, members of the public. I'm Steve Loop, Public Works Administrator, and I'll be giving some updates this evening, starting with item 5.2, an update regarding debris removal and levee repair. So, as I mentioned previously, all the 5 debris piles have been removed from the creek and placed outside the levee. 4 of the 5 piles have been actually burned per proper protocols, and the last remaining debris pile is at the northeast corner of Lovers Lane, Pacheco Creek. So now that we've had a little bit of storms pass, I put a reminder on my calendar to actually reach out to the property owner this week, I believe it's Thursday, on the 27th, to help her coordinate the burn permit and any activities in that regard. So, so hopefully that can move forward. I know there's a little storm that could possibly reach us this weekend. You have to have your debris mostly dried out, and I think probably now is a good time in that regard. So that's the debris removal. And let's see, levee repairs. So yes, I think we mentioned last time, FEMA's environmental team gave us a green light that the last levee repair can proceed. And we're currently processing the final contract. It should be sent out to the contractor tomorrow, I think, actually, because I think we have all of our internal approvals occurred today or perhaps Friday. Actually, I think it was today from when I was looking at my emails and some discussions. So, yeah, so I'll pause there, but I think we have made a lot of progress over the last year and a half in this regard, and so we're just at the kind of the finish line for both of those activities.
Is there any update on the Lovers Lane project?
The embankment repairs with the rock riprap. I haven't been to the site for a couple weeks. I believe the activities have started, but let me put myself on mute for a moment, please. Great. So yeah, again, we're waiting for some sunny weather so that some of our large equipment don't get stuck in the mud, so to speak. And so, yeah, I think we're just waiting for kind of both locations to dry out a tiny bit. And hopefully there's just a small storm this weekend and we can proceed with that project as well. So.
Thank you. Do the trustees have any questions? Is there any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
All right, let's move on to 5.3, and this is the status of the FEMA applications.
Okay. So another bit of small good news on the FEMA applications. So as of March 18th, the project funding reimbursement request has reached the third step of what they call the spend plan confirmation process. This is the delivery task force leader person. That person actually approved that the spend plan projection was reasonable. And so therefore, I think there might be just 1 or 2 levels remaining. Honestly, it's when it gets up to this high level, it just kind of happens, I guess you'd say, and then we get obligated, which means FEMA thinks that a check can be sent to the applicant, which is Pacheco Stormwater District. So we're very, very close. They went through 2 hurdles over the last month. So there was, I forgot the one below, the name of the folks, but this is actually a higher level. So I actually went through 2 levels in the last month on the debris removal. And similarly, a day after, the spend plan projection was approved by that same group person on the 19th of March. So looking through the FEMA protocols and process guide, it basically, I think we're close to the final steps before getting, and until the district gets authorized for reimbursement, but we're getting very close. So we went through 2 steps over the last month in a good way, so.
Very good news. Thank you. Are there any questions from the trustees? Any public comment?
There appears to be no public comment.
All right, we will move on to 5.4. And this is, okay, discuss and approve letters of interest to the Army Corps levy and floodplain management programs. And then a note about a historical report from 1973. So as just a little bit of background, Steve and I attended a virtual meeting with a number of people from the U.S. Army Corps, and we got some clarity about the different programs and what we needed to do, and it was a pretty good meeting. Steve, did you have something to present about it, or?
Yeah, we can go through there's 2 primary groups. Essentially, there's the National Levy Safety Program group, and then there's what I'll call the Planning and Technical Assistance group. And so we had a real good discussion with both. I think the second group's called the Floodplain Management Services Program. So, and they both suggested that the district should send out letters of interest to each of them individually. So I'll pause there. Maybe you want to add some more context, but I can keep going if you want. So, okay. But.
Yeah, I mean, basically, so I was a little bit confused at first what the different groups do, but I guess the levy review group, it's just like what it sounds. I guess they come and review your levies and tell you if they're in good shape or not and what you need to do. The other group, the Floodplain Management Program, does other sorts of work. Technical assistance like flood mapping, I don't know, different sorts of studies. They also help with emergency assistance planning and that sort of thing. So they really are 2 different groups with 2 different functions. And when we described our group and what we needed, our district and what we needed, they agreed that it would be good to submit letters of interest for both programs. And that this is how you get the ball rolling with the Army Corps, is these letters of interest. And they had templates which I used to generate a couple of letters, which I've not yet submitted, but I intend to this week, hopefully, if they're approved. So anyway, back to Steve.
Yeah, so for interest of the public and the trustees, we clipped out all the pertinent context and verbiage for those 2 letters, and Public Works reviewed them, and both letters look good, and the county recommends, as Trustee Schrader just mentioned, we should submit these to the 2 different groups. Essentially, the first group, we're reaching out, the district's going to reaching out to them and saying, please come site visit our levy system and walk our levies and provide an assessment. And that helps get the levies on the radar of FEMA, of Army Corps, because even discussing with Army Corps, they showed us some pretty detailed LiDAR, which is essentially kind of a 3D map of the levees, but without really visiting the sites, they had a lot of questions and we answered some of them, and So it sounds like they were amenable to come out for that site visit. So that's step one. And that's the letter on the screen as you see there. And then a separate step, I won't call it step two, but it's kind of a parallel request and a parallel process is to reach out to their floodplain management system. And they're the ones that help you plan your infrastructure or your maintenance program for your infrastructure, for the levees, for the creek. And one thing we mentioned, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is if the district can provide funding for some of those services, is that possible via like a memorandum of understanding or a JPA, some type of agreement, some type of formal agreement? If the district could provide some funding in that regard, is that feasible? And they said, yes, it's not typical, but it is feasible that a district could provide them with funding, because they sounded like they have various programs that we would obviously apply to try to obtain funding. But if that doesn't bear fruit, then we can actually have an agreement with them to pay them to help us with the study. So yeah, it was a real productive call, and so definitely want to send out these letters soon. So.
Okay, well, are there any questions on this from the trustees? I mean, we are agreeing, in particular with the levy safety review program, we are agreeing to give them access, which we'll have to work with all of our owners to do that, but, you know.
We want to get
cross
on their
that bridge.
radar, right? So,
Yeah.
That's right.
I have a question. I know sometimes the county, they don't have no money for doing this kind of projects, but what about if we asking help like the farmers? Because when we had the flood 2 years ago, it's a lot of land, farming land, they get damaged. I mean, we can talk probably to the farmers, try to get some help because they get damaged too, the same like our properties. I mean, we had to find a way, to fix this problem.
That's a great point. And we do have a Department of Agriculture at the county, and they are very much in contact with the farmers. And I believe they tried to reach out to even obtain some emergency funding, just like you're saying. So I think that's a great suggestion. And once we have an assessment and once we get some input from their other floodplain management group, I think it'll help us just be aware of some of the programs that are available, like, ag preservation, because ag is really important. It's important to our county, it's important to the state, and elsewhere, just the amount of agriculture that this region produces. So it might open up some funding opportunities. So that's a real good suggestion.
Yeah, because something that I remember, I think so I see on the TV, and that time, I think so the agriculture, they lost like $52 million. See, my memory is okay. I mean, $52 million is a lot, The farmers probably, they can help us, with some of the money to prevent this kind of the problems. And I mean, invest, I don't know, $500,000 and save 52. I think so it's a pretty good deal,
Yeah, I concur. And there's some, large ag businesses in our region that might be able to assist also. So I think it's a real good idea. So maybe another agenda item, if we, per the trustees' suggestions, we could add county to coordinate with the ag department to reach out, or at least provide some input in that regard. We can bring our ag commissioner here, maybe the next meeting, and talk about his thoughts on reaching out to the ag community, the ag businesses, and also at the same time, hopefully in the near future, we could start reaching out for some grants, agriculture type of grants So, yeah, sounds a good idea.
One thing I should mention is that once we submit these letters, it could be a while before we see anything happen. They did say that there was already a waiting list for their services, and of course, the funding is somewhat uncertain. So it could, it may not happen this year. It probably won't, I'm guessing. So, but at least we can take the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just in discussions with the levy group, they were interested to know that we had, levies on the north side and the south side and how far they went and all those good things. So I think you're correct. We would get in their queue, as they say, and they didn't say much except that there's several people in their queue. So, but it'll be good to get in the queue in line. So.
Okay, and then one other thing before, and then I'll open it up to public comment. So we were provided recently with, and I may ask Marcel to explain where he got this, but apparently there was a report done by the Army Corps in 1973 about our district, and it's a fairly long document. I just started reading it. It's pretty interesting. I'd actually like to provide it to our friends that are currently at the U.S. Army Corps because they might find it interesting too. But it's maybe we can talk more about it at the next meeting. It's fascinating read, actually. There's a little bit about the history of the district, and then it talks about all every time flooding occurred. It has every year that flooding occurred, at least up till 73. I guess there was a particularly bad one in 1955 on Christmas Eve. A bunch of people were evacuated. So I'm hoping to read more of it, but maybe, and Steve, I don't know if you've read it, but maybe you could present on it at the next meeting. I think it would be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I did read it, and I especially like the photos of, I don't know, I guess Public Works folks showing how high the flood would reach during the different storm events. And yeah, I read through it. It was actually pretty interesting. So I'd be happy to kind of highlight some of the bigger, kind of summarize it during the next meeting. And we can, would you like me to send it to the, maybe when you send the letters, my suggestion is you could also attach that report when you send the letters, perhaps. So,
yeah, I think I will, actually, because when we had that meeting on March 5th, we didn't have this report. I didn't know it existed. So,
thank you for the folks that obtained it. We
yes,
appreciate it. So.
Yes, thank you. Okay, is there any public comment?
Sure. Just so I know, how is the information being shared?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand, Sean.
The information you were just talking about, I just want to make sure that we're not having emails between the trustees. You can send them emails, but if there's correspondence, if there's back and forth, then it constitutes a meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, we were talking about sending it to the Army Corps.
I see. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know, so you have not received it, the trustees have not received it. Okay, well, we can forward it to you as well, just so you can see it. But I was hoping that we could also talk about it at the next meeting. So, but no, we were mainly talking about sending it to the Army Corps, so.
I see. Okay.
Okay, but thank you for that. So is there a public comment on 5.4?
Yes, we have one public comment in chambers. Rochelle, you may now approach the podium.
I wanted to say thank you for attending that meeting with Army Corps, and I had a question on the topic, what Armando brought up, or trustee Alfaro brought up, is, the question was getting farmers together in time of emergency. And when Paula and I and Marcel attended that meeting last fall, there is this division called the PL 8499 that I would think that we should discuss or have a discussion about applying for that, because basically, if we're signed up for that, that's when the action happens. They say that they provide emergency debris removal within 10 days or up to 10 days after the disaster. They have their own authority and they have the ability to provide debris removal up to 10 days. And then they can also contract with people to clear culverts, roads, etc. Whereas FEMA can't act until they get an emergency presidential declaration. So I think that I would make that recommendation for us to strongly consider registering for the PL 8499 division, so that if we do happen to go through another flood event, we call them, our district is at that point registered, and we will be recipients of debris removal and clearing culverts, etc. So if we could perhaps put that on the agenda for next time as well, I think that would be a good idea, or something good to discuss. And I also wanted to ask, was there any discussion on an O&M manual? So that's it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'm glad you brought up the 8499, because we did discuss that. And in fact, at the meeting, there were several people. There was, I don't know, 6 or 7 of them, and from different divisions. And there was a person named Holly Costa, and she was from their emergency division, and she did PL 8499. And what I got, and Steve, you can tell me what your impression was, but what I got from this conversation, because we were really just talking to them about what are the first steps for our district, given what our situation is. And the impression I got was that basically 8499 would be great if our levees were in good shape and maintained, because they have to come out, they have to inspect them. We have to pass inspections, and our levees are not in good shape. So what I got out of it was, being part of 8499, it might be a bit premature at this point. But Steve, what were your impressions?
Yeah, that's an accurate assessment. They mentioned specifically coming out, assessing the levies, and then perhaps we would qualify to be on the PL 8499 program, just like you said. And then they also mentioned the operation and maintenance manual as part of that discussion. They said once your levees are in reasonable shape, then the other group, the floodplain management services, would help us put together an operation and maintenance program. And they might have mailed us a sample. I can't remember. But
I believe they did, and I
did.
Forgot all about that. But I will put it on the list here, and I will look at it.
Yeah, they actually mailed us a sample program. So that's kind of the process. And perhaps, and maybe it's segments of the levies. Again, we'll wait and see what the professionals are regarding their assessment of the levies along Pacheco Creek. But step 1 is have them out, come out, perform the assessment. Then perhaps we can become part of the 8499 program, or perhaps they might say you need to do XYZ improvements to the levees, and then you can be enlisted in the program is kind of what they were saying, depending on the state of the levees, just like you said. So we discussed it, and we discussed both those topics actually during the calls.
Yeah, I imagine that there are sections that are in pretty good condition, the sections that have been repaired, but I'm also assuming that they want all of it to be in good repair and maintained. I'm guessing. So we're not there yet.
Hey, Michelle, because when I was at that meeting, they pretty much said that to sign up for PL 8499, and they would come and they would look at the levy and give you an idea as to where it stands and what it looks like, but
Ah.
it's not like, wait till your levy is repaired and then call us. I don't remember
Okay.
that.
Well, again, they do want to make an assessment. They could say, as I just mentioned, after they've had the assessment, okay, great, your levies are in somewhat good condition, enroll in the program. At that time, you're right. But our impression was we couldn't instantaneously enlist in the program. For example, they didn't know there was an entire southern part of the levee that existed. So they knew there was a northern levee, but in their system, they didn't even know there was a southern levee. So we had that discussion. So I think we have to at least document the levies. And then perhaps, as you suggested, at that time, they say, okay, fine, now enroll in the PL 8499. But first we have to have levies in their system is kind of what they were saying, basically, right? So, but it possible it could happen quick. It's possible, so, yeah.
At the end of the meeting, we all decided, I think, that we were going to meet again relatively soon. I think they even mentioned April. So we could bring this up again because while I'm guessing that we would not pass any inspection to become part of 8499 right now, it might be I don't know if it would be a quicker way to get somebody out to assess things. That I'm not sure about, but we can ask. So.
Yeah, we'll definitely ask, and if they say apply right now, we'll apply right now, truly, so, yeah. So, we'll see.
We're already registered in their levy database, correct? 'Cause we did that personally.
It sounds like there is a levy, from what was discussed to us, we discussed the northern levy, and then on the south side of the creek, for whatever reason, that didn't appear to be in their system. So that's what they told us, so, yeah. Some of the levies are in the system, so. So yeah, we're getting there,
All right, is there any other public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment in chambers.
I wanted to, my final question on the PL situation is it, which I've never been able to get clear, is it impendent on us to apply as a district? Or is it something that the county applies for? Mentioning our district and all their other potential areas for flooding so that the whole county can get benefits from a flood disaster. So that was my follow-up, because that's never been really clear. I think that we felt as a group that we needed to do it, but is that a fact? So.
I did not ask that question specifically. I got the impression that it was not, that each levy system would apply on their own, but I don't know. Do you have any input on that, Steve?
I concur. We did not actually discuss who would apply. So I guess that'd be a good topic, whether it's the district or the county. I'll say this, the county is more than willing to apply the levies, but we should ask the question on, does it have to be the owners or can it be the county because it's within the county? But the county would definitely be willing to apply to that program if that's the proper protocol. So I'll say that much.
Great. All right. So I do have, on the agenda, it does say discuss and approve the letters of interest. So I guess we can go ahead and vote on that. Is there a motion to approve the letters of interest to be submitted to the Army Corps Levy Safety Review Program and the floodplain management program?
I motion that we approve the letters to the Army Corps of Engineers and the National Levy Safety Program.
So approve and submit.
Submit.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we will work on doing that. Okay, so 5.5. This is the ongoing discussion about potential cleanup by the California Conservation Corps. And we did get the drone footage. That's Steve.
We did. We received it, gosh, a couple of weeks ago perhaps, and so the county forwarded that drone video link to the trustees. Hopefully the three of you received that. I actually also viewed it, and as a reminder or refresher, talking to the California Conservation Corps, if the trustees thought it was worthwhile, then they could provide a crew of approximately 12 workers at a cost of $13,000 a week. It's for 5 days, I believe, to come to the creek, and they'd bring chainsaws and various other small equipment, and essentially, well, perform activities, I would say removal of non-living vegetation from the creek, and I think we need permits to actually remove anything that's living. So they could definitely take down branches and remove some branches and things like that, but we couldn't do any ground disturbance. So yeah, so I don't know if the trustees had a moment to watch the videos, but it was pretty extensive. It went essentially from past 156. It was about 4 miles of drone video. So I'll just pause there for comments or questions.
I saw the footage, and I don't clearly see the base of the creek. It was mostly really high aerial. And I know when CCC comes out, they're going to only clear dead debris. But I'm wondering, isn't that the dead debris piles that already got cleaned out? I'm not sure how much is left in the creek right now.
So, yeah, if that's a question, I concur. So the video pilot, they say he actually did fly lower than normal, but I concur with you. I think what you're saying is, should we request him to fly even lower? Because he usually even, believe it or not, when he did the footage from the storm events when we had the disaster, he was actually at a higher elevation, so he got lower. I think he can get lower. He can only get so close to the utility lines, but I understand what you're saying. It's a little bit hard to make a judgment based on the video. It's a great video, but
It is.
he might need to get a little bit lower elevation to make a fair assessment. And I think upstream and downstream, in my humble opinion, there's one small section between Lovers Lane and San Felipe Road on the creek that still could be, there's some debris there. And then downstream of the Lovers Lane Bridge, there's debris there, and at a minimum. And then upstream, it looks like there were some areas potentially, but I'll pause there for other comments, questions.
I'm sorry, is he like what you just mentioned right now? I didn't see any of that on that video. And I thought that's what I was going to be able to see.
Noted, yeah, it was a little difficult because it was wet in a lot of places. So I was just looking at areas where I could see vegetation that was potentially removable by California Conservation Corps, like you're saying, so.
So I had a question, Steve. I mean, you had mentioned possibly asking them to redo it, the footage, and this time fly lower. There was a suggestion made at our last meeting that we do a walking tour of the district. If if we did actually plan something like that, would that be more useful in terms of figuring out what exactly we need to do and where they should concentrate?
I think because the district has, let's just say, $40,000 or maybe 3 weeks worth of work as available funding, I think we should assess, based on the video, we should assess the situation on the ground by foot, which can be a little tricky, but because we're gonna the district will have to identify specific areas for the Corps to focus on. So the answer is probably yes. To really assess the situation, we're probably gonna have to walk the levees, and there's some accessibility issues, but it's probably a good idea. So.
Okay. Is there public comment?
Yes, we have a public comment in chambers. Rochelle, you may now approach the podium.
Thank you. I wanted to point out that, so the drone footage I found was very enlightening. And obviously, I think we have a lot of work to do from Lover's Lane Bridge on. A lot. 40,000 is a lot of money, and that stuff all grows back again. However, in order for us to get in touch with our levee system and get familiar with it, it needs to be cleared at least once a year. And I think it's something that we have to commit to. Perhaps try one experience with them for a week. Let's see what we get. Because we can't, like, I can walk my levee system for the most part. I don't know, if you guys have tried to do that or if it's possible with your levee system. But in order for us to, have a manual, an O&M for our levee, and in order to engage with Army Corps, we have to put forth maintenance with our levee so that we can access it and walk it. So my question was, perhaps this might be directed to Steve. Is there any possibility of establishing perhaps a cost share with the county? We pay half, they pay half kind of thing? Is it a joint effort? Can it be looked at, something like that? But I, as a landowner, feel that in order for us to really start to make a difference and have an impact with what we're doing, we need to engage in getting the levee cleared. And I think CC, California Conservation Corps, should remain on the top of the levee. And, maybe we can see how deep it is to go in. But I believe first we have to kind of maintain the tops of the levee in order to access it. Going into the creek is a different story. At least that's how I see it. So and then if it's cleared once a year, I think it should get better eventually. And then perhaps we talk about good practices with environmentally approved herbicide that we apply once a year. I'm not a fan of it, but if it's approved by the environment, we have to do something. And then we have the Arondo issue. And that is a big stopper. I don't know if Army Corps or if CCC can get in there and actually remove, because we, in our section of levee, have quite 2 big sections of heavy-duty Arondo growth. The only way to get rid of that is by bulldozing and treating it with herbicide. I just met with somebody today on that. So we have the regular organic growth that we need to take care of yearly, and then we have the invasive species, the Arondo, to deal with. But I think in order for us to go in the right direction, my input is, let's try it, even though it's costly. Let's see if we're happy and what the effects are. So.
Thank you. Mr. Steve, did you want to respond?
Sure. So, at a minimum, we can put aside some funding to help with the debris removal around the bridges. And as the resident just mentioned, we can focus on the top of the levees as well without having to get permits to just clean away the dead debris around the top and some of the debris on the properties around the bridges. So we would definitely team with the district in that regard. And I also concur that just to access some points of the levee is going to take some efforts to even reach some of those areas. So my suggestion is, after we have the next meeting with the levee maintenance team from Army Corps, if they can, and I don't know if this is possible, but if they can provide us, the district, with some rough timeframes of when they might be able to come to make their assessment, perhaps, since there's limited funding, we could time the California Conservation Corps efforts to occur, just prior to the levee assessment team, and that way it would be kind of using the funding for a couple different purposes. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have additional public comment.
Hello, Lucinda Floric, landowner. Yeah, I agree with Rochelle and what Steve was saying, but I wanted to add, because I am a landowner and have a significant amount of growth, and I'm very close to the levee, as everybody knows. And so my house is right next to that bridge, the Lover's Lane Bridge, going westward. So there is significant amount of growth in there, in the middle of the creek. And so even though the other growth has been cleared up, looks good, but they didn't go west of the bridge. So there's a lot of large trees, and because there's a little bridge, a cement bridge in the middle of the bridge, it kind of like splits the water. So now all the water is going south of the creek, and so this growth is just continuing on. So yeah, we need to clear the growth there, because it's quite significant. There's a lot, and it's just, and now that the water is not going on the half of that creek on the north side, that growth continues to go continue, and our water and our levee is getting eroded more. So yeah, please consider going all the way from the bridge westward down at least several hundred feet at the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the creek, in the middle of the creek, it's pretty wide, but half of the creek, now the water is flowing down this south side of it, of half of the creek. And this side of the creek, down in the middle, the trees are getting like debris being built up in there, so no water flow is going through there. And so it's just allowing the trees to get even bigger and larger. And so now the creek is getting narrower and narrower, and then it's going through my levee and eroding it. So, yeah, so we need the inside the creek also. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
All right, well, I don't think we're ready to approve any cleanup this month. I think we still need more information, unless someone wants to make a motion. Okay, all right, we will wait. Let's move on to 5.6, update on grant opportunities. So last time, Steve, you told us about a very exciting update regarding some information that, or some funds that would come through the county. And what is the update there on that now?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, there is some good news in that regard. Actually, I put it on the next item, 5.7. I uploaded some information. So if there's...
Okay, I didn't,
so-
didn't
No, that's my
notice
mistake.
that.
I kind
Okay.
of duplicated items, so I apologize.
Yeah,
so-
no, that's okay. Well, let's see. I don't think we have any updates on any other grant opportunities at this point. Is there any public comment on 5.6?
There appears to be no public comment.
All right, then let's go to 5.7.
Okay, yes, so the 2023 and 24 disasters, there was quite a few. The main one was in winter of 2023. And the state of California has granted $416 million to the Housing and Community Development Department for the state. And just as a refresher, if you look at the column on the left, the total allocation for infrastructure and mitigation for all of the counties for those disasters is $126 million, which means there's approximately $300 million, maybe a little bit less, I'm rounding, for housing mitigation, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. But in a very good way, San Benito County, at a minimum, is granted $1.9 million for disaster recovery infrastructure use, and I'll explain that in a minute, and $9.5 million for mitigation of future impacts to infrastructure. So the 1.9 million, it has to be directly related to an impact that was communicated to FEMA, to the state for infrastructure. I.e., we had communicated to the state that, or to FEMA, excuse me, that Lover's Lane, one of the reasons there was a lot of flooding issues, besides the levee breaches, was the roadside ditches and drainage systems were overwhelmed. And so, therefore, we started to do some minor repairs. We cleared some ditches. We added a few pipes, mostly on the north side of the creek, and cleaned out some culvert, replaced some culverts. And so these folks said, okay, because you the county, provided those improvements, we're going to give you $1.9 million to do other things infrastructure-wise. Now, we had all kinds of areas that had county infrastructure impacts, but at least tentatively, Public Works submitted the $1.9 million to reconstruct Lover's Lane. Basically, the nexus is that, once the flooding occurred, the roads was in real bad conditions, and really a lot of vehicles couldn't even make it through the roads because the roads themselves weren't paved well, and so folks had to be rescued or use their four-wheel drive trucks and whatnot. So tentatively at this point, the state said, okay, we'll allow you to have $1.9 million to kind of repave Lover's Lane so that vehicles during a flood event could actually exit and get to, either Shore Road or 152. So, and these ratios or these numbers were predetermined. So in other words, we couldn't ask for 20 million and they said, well, you get 20 million. Basically, they came up with their own ratios internally and they said, San Benito County, thou shall have 1.9 million. What do you want to do with it? So That will repair a lot of Lover's Lane, if not all of it. You know, we'll have to run the numbers, and we have to go through the program to do that. So that's the 1.9 million. Better news for this group is the 9.5 million. So we mentioned during the call with those folks, we said, can we use some of the 9.5 million to do H&H study, hydraulic and hydrology study of the area in the county around this area, and spend $500,000, $1 million, something to that degree on this study. And then, per the results of the study, use the remaining 8 million for improvements to this area around Pacheco Creek and the levees. And I specifically mentioned, you know, the county doesn't own all of this property, so we would need agreements with the property owners and or the district. And tentatively, the folks on the call said, that's fine. We understand you'll have to get easements and access to do these repairs. So I wanted to just paint the full picture. And so at this moment, it sounds like those things are, there's a good probability those things will occur. The nice thing about it is this money, the 1.9 million, 9.5 million, that's dedicated to our county, nobody else. It's for San Benito County. So all the other counties have their own designations based on, you know, ginormous impacts and road collapses and things that happen in different counties. And so basically we just have to apply, you know, meet their criteria. But, and here the other thing is, I think we have 4 years to complete, to spend the money essentially. So I believe it was, we'll have to go through the program. I'll talk about it in a minute. They're gonna have a webinar on April 2nd, April 3rd. We'll talk about that in a second, but they're gonna talk about infrastructure, and they're also gonna talk about housing. And I don't wanna mislead anyone on the housing part of it, because there was 3 different programs within the housing. And if property owners had done improvements to their property, then potentially, I'm not going to say for sure, but potentially some of that 300 million that's available, that's not infrastructure, is specifically geared towards housing. And so I highly encourage anyone that's done improvements to their house or their property to attend the meetings, which I'll talk about in a moment. So, well, I'll just go there. So essentially what this slide just says is 460 million was provided to Housing and Community Development Program to be used specifically because of these storms, which is great news for folks around Pacheco Creek watershed. And I highly recommend that you attend the meeting at 6 o'clock. It's a webinar on April 2nd. April 2nd's in English and April 3rd is in Spanish. And there's also, if anyone doesn't want to copy paste some of this, just email me. I'll send you the actual documents, and otherwise you can type in these web addresses. And I recommend, you know, I don't know, we can talk about offline if the district wants to punt some of this information out to some of the property owners around Lover's Lane, but I think it'd be a very good idea. I'm also going to send the information to some folks in San Juan Bautista and some folks around a mobile home park who had a lot of impacts to their mobile homes. So yeah, so all good news, and I think there's even some potential for private property owners to obtain some of that funding. I don't want to speak any more of that because I don't want to mislead anybody, but all good things, and I'll pause there for questions.
So Steve, when you say San Benito County, is that San Benito County, the whole, in its whole, including the city?
It is, and so in that regard, the way this program viewed the funding was, we're going to give money to counties, and then within the counties, if an entity had requested funding, i.e. City of Hollister or San Juan Bautista or perhaps a Pacheco Stormwater District, then the county could work with those entities. So, yeah, so that's why I'm going to forward the information to San Juan Bautista. Believe it or not, City of Hollister did not request any funding during the storm events that I'm aware of. They might have asked for firefighter reimbursements for some of their emergency operations, but it was all, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's for the whole county. So, yeah, so, you bet.
Other than attending this webinar on the 2nd or the 3rd, is there anything else that the district needs to do? Or?
No, not that I'm aware of. And again, I don't exactly know why, but special districts weren't really included. So one of my questions for the team is, can the special districts directly utilize this money? I don't know if the money is just directed at quote counties, but again, regardless, either way, I've asked a question about, using the 9 million for the levies in this general area. And the reason, just for folks that are listening that might not live, around the Pacheco Creek area, but that area, in our county area was the hardest hits, in addition to a mobile home park in San Juan Bautista. Those were kind of the two big impact areas. We had a lot of roads and other things going on, but with the 1.9 million, that's kind of limited for infrastructure, believe it or not, to what we can do. Levers Lane is about all that could, we couldn't just rebuild all the roads in the county for 1.9 million. For those folks that roads are expensive these days. So, and we had a lot of flood damage on Lovers Lane as well. So
That would make our day, I think, if you repaved Lovers Lane.
yeah, so we'll see. Fingers crossed, but all good things, and I'll pause there. So yes.
Do the trustees have any questions? Is there any public comment?
Yes. Yes, we have a public comment in the chambers. Rochelle Beerley, you may now approach the podium.
Okay, well, that's great news. Just for my mind's sake, does that mean that the district will maybe I missed that, Steve, does the district automatically qualify, or would our trustees submit like a proposed couple of plans that we have down the line? So that's what I would like to have clarity on.
Excellent question. So I'll answer the question after I mention this, but thus far, we've had 2 meetings with HCD. Essentially, the counties are applying for funding and projects. So a great question, which I'll ask, and maybe I'll even email before, is, can a special district within the county apply for this funding or not? Because I do not know the answer to that. And it's a really good question, because on the housing side of the world, for the 300 million that's available for housing, that opens up a lot of good possibilities for private residents on private property. And so perhaps, and I don't know the answer to this, because a lot of the creeks and the levees are within private property, could some of that 300 million be utilized for private property improvements, i.e., money that was spent on levee repairs or property repairs or those type of things. So in other words, would the individuals within the district be able to use some of that 300 million on their properties or on, the creek itself? So I think those are really good questions, and my best answer is we should just listen to the webinar on April 2nd. I'll email beforehand myself just in that regard and just to get some clarity, but I think there's some potential for some good things. I'll just leave it at that, so.
All right, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no additional public comment.
All right, let's move on to 5.8. And here, we're going to talk about the mailer, the postcard we've been talking about for the last few months. And we're also going to talk about the possibility of developing a logo and also the sign on Lover's Lane. So let's see, Rochelle, do you have an update on the postcard?
I have a slight update. I did try to use a app that was suggested to me, and for the life of me, I just can't do it. I can't figure it out. So that's a cry for help. But if we stick to the old way of doing things, which is like how I did it last time, I did update the flyer idea, and I can send that electronically to the trustees. I should have done that ahead of time, but I basically just kind of took, the verbiage is hard. You don't want to overwhelm too much. You don't want to underwhelm. So it's kind of difficult. So I kind of just broke it down into a who, what, where, when, why kind of scenario. And with our parcel map on the top, because I think that's who we are, personally speaking, that people can look at that and relate to that. And I talked about upcoming topics after the who, what, where, when, why, and how we're repairing broken levees, clean out, analysis on the creek, et cetera, whatever. And then why we need more members to show up. And I kind of need a little bit of guidance on that one. I don't really know how to answer that because we're trying to reach out to have members show up. And I guess we want to know why. And then on the back side, we'll have the address here. And then I thought I would take the gist of this and put it in Spanish so that it's separate and clear. And that's pretty much what I came up with.
Great. So
But
this is a
again-
larger version of what you had developed before?
Yes, larger version.
Okay.
The postcard version, which I believe I have here, I think that's a good size.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then that way we can, incorporate not only just the address here, but we can put the full Spanish version on that side too. So it gives us enough room, I think, for that. But if you guys could offer some suggestions, perhaps think about it and find out why we want members to show. I mean, we're trying to get feedback, we're trying to get ideas. We're all vested.
Yeah. Well, why don't, maybe you could send what you have?
Yep.
And then maybe we could do another, last time you actually had a sample made.
Yes.
We could, once we get the language, of course, we're going to need help with the Spanish, but
Right.
Let's nail down the English first.
That sounds good.
And
And
ask for some help with the Spanish, and then we could do a sample, and then finally approve it, I guess.
And I guess I have a question also. I have that file which lists all the names supposedly of the property owners, but I think that was instead a sign-up sheet from that meeting.
I believe that's true, and not only that, it's been 2 years now, so there are, I'm sure there are some changes. So perhaps we can get, when we're ready to mail it out, we can get the most up-to-date list of property owners.
Good, because I would like to know how many property members or property owners are in the district. I'm still unclear on that. So that would be quite helpful. And I believe that the list is reflective of the people who participated in that meeting, because I've got a couple of neighbors down the way who aren't members, who were just there for the meeting because they flooded.
Yeah,
And
Yeah, that's a good point. There are people who are at that meeting whose parcels don't actually technically belong to the district, so.
right. So I guess, do you have access to a full real list?
No, but it seems like that would be something that we could get, right, Steve?
Correct.
So it does exist. Do we know how many parcels are in our district?
Yeah, I want to say it's approximately 70, but I don't recall if Victor remembers. But somewhere around that number. So.
Okay, so I think in order for me to finalize the verbiage on this, I would like to be obviously current. So if that information could somehow get sent and then we can wrap up with the details, I think that would be super.
Okay,
Otherwise, I feel that the changes that need to be made are very easy,
Yeah.
quick, and we could get this out after approval at the next meeting, perhaps.
okay,
So,
thank
that's
you.
it. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the trustees on this particular? Okay. And I'll take public comment at the end, but first let's also talk about the logo. So Marcel Bierly has volunteered to look into this for us. And he had some ideas about how we could get a logo for not a whole lot of money. Marcel, would you be willing to come up and explain that?
Marcel Bierly, homeowner, San Felipe. While I was working on the 4-foot by 4-foot sign for that billboard or whatever, I kind of tried to get information, what do we put on the sign? And so the only thing that was good and available was the map that showed the landowners around the Pacheco Creek. And for me, it would be much better to kind of, if we have correspondence, whatever, to come up with a logo. So the logo would be something that I've done in the past many, many times. You hire a service and you give them like the rough idea, what you want, like San Benito County logo, what we have with our map, and then they make 4 mock-ups. So on those 4 mock-ups, you then decide, yeah, I want to go this direction, a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and then you kind of, it's a really quick process. We're talking a week. And then money, $15, $20, $25. These are students or whatever, they work with graphic design software, but with this logo, we call that vector graphics, meaning you can then enlarge it to any size you want. So you can go 4 by 4 foot and you have a 2-foot logo, no problem. It's very accurate and there's no like pixels on the corners and something like that. So it basically identifies us with what we're trying to do, with the sign, with our mailer, just an easy way. Then I never done the QR thing, but it was literally 5 minutes. You just basically have a very long URL. You go to a website, it's called tinyURL. You make this very long URL into a very short URL. And then with that one, you create a QR code. And that QR code, when you click on it, it goes to that tiny URL, which then forwards you to the correct URL, you know, the official Pacheco Water Storm District, or you can also use the neighborhood, you know, well, we're all in the neighborhood here, that neighbor watch or whatever it's called.
Next
Yeah.
door.
Next door neighbor. So I sent you, because I didn't have the other 2 email addresses, I sent you a little mock-up. How fast this goes, I literally had 10 minutes for this. So it's a very quick thing, but for me, the logo is something that reflects us, what's missing. So there's really nothing I can put up there other than that little one map that I found on the next door that you found somewhere. That's the only thing. So that's a little bit to the research of the sign, of the logo.
After that, you can blow it up to 4-foot signs or little mailer, it doesn't really matter what size.
All right.
That's kind of, and
So the QR code would go on that banner?
for example, you can do the QR codes, somebody takes their cell phone, clicks it, and they're already on the website. That's how fast that goes. You don't have to write anything down. Everybody has a cell phone. So that's the idea behind it.
Okay, are there any questions by the trustees? Okay, so
And I
go
would,
ahead.
I could only offer to be the middleman, meaning the ideas that somebody's talking about, oh, this has to be red, or this is blue, or this bigger, or whatever, or here is a tree missing. I can relay this information to the designer. You know, we have like 4 mock-ups, that's how I did it in the past. And then, oh, I need this and a little bit, this here and this there, and then it comes the next version, oh, yeah, 2 things, done. So it goes rather quickly. So, but I don't want to make that, I don't want to be the decision maker.
Right, no,
I
of
can just relay the information, but it has to be somebody that knows what they want for the logo.
All right, well, assuming that we want to do this, that we
Correct.
want to develop a logo, perhaps someone can be the designated person. One of the trustees could be the person to sort of do this back and forth, and then perhaps bring a final proposed version that we could approve then at a meeting. So the question is, and Marcel, do we have to, so do we pay this $25 or whatever it is upfront, and then you get your logo, or how does that work?
I mean, I don't care about $25, so I'll sponsor that if you want. It's just so much easier on a credit card, online, done. So it's
Well-
not like 250 or 500 or whatever. I mean, real big companies pay, you know, $5,000 for a logo, but not us. This is just something easy,
Okay.
fast. It's not, you know, there's lots of things that I can think of that can go into this logo development. Like I said, the San Benito County has the old logo, then the new logo. I don't know how much money they spent. We can ask Steve, but there is, and it cannot be the same. So, you know, but maybe the colors, or, you know, there's all kinds of options that these designers have in their head, but I'm not the designer.
Okay, well, no, thank you for the work you've done on this already, investigating this. So would anyone like to be on the logo committee?
I'll help you out with this. I'll partner up with you. Okay?
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so trustee Azcona will be the logo committee along with Marcel Beardley. And then at the next meeting, or whenever you have it ready, perhaps you could have something for us to look at. Wonderful. Okay. Do you have any questions? All right, is there any public comment on these matters that we just discussed? 5.8.
Yes.
Okay, Marcel, please.
One add-on to the, so basically the sign that we want to put on that 4-foot billboard, since we're doing the logo, we would do, then incorporate that logo on that sign somehow. So that's, the sign would wait a little bit, but I think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even, I don't think we ever really decided what we wanted on the sign. But the logo sounds like a nice idea.
Okay,
So
good.
I think, yeah, it's waited this long. It can wait a little longer. All right, any public comment on 5.8?
There appears to be no additional public comment.
All right. So 5.9, discussion of future agenda items. I have so far perhaps inviting the Ag Commissioner. I think he's been here before, like last year, but maybe this is to talk specifically about funding opportunities.
That sounds great. Yeah, it's Ken Griffin, so we can invite him in.
Yeah, he's
sounds
been
good.
here. Okay. And then going to talk about that report from 1973, and I'll dig out the O&M manual that they sent us, the sample. Anything else that anybody wants on the agenda, other than the things that we've been discussing every month?
I kind of want to revisit that CCC, because not really just CCC, it's more like we need somebody who, or some more information as to how to clear the actual waterway. Who do we, that's what we need. It's the waterway that's the issue for us, I think.
Okay. Well, we have talked about that, and basically it comes down to
But we keep
permits.
bringing CCC, and I don't think they're really the ones who we really need.
No, we would need permits, we would need consultants, we would need money. I mean, no, I agree once we got things, so my own, in my head, what I was thinking is once we get these letters of interest off to the Army Corps, then I was going to turn my attention to the California Department of Water Resources and also the Fish and Wildlife, and see what we can get started there. That was sort of my idea, but I don't know if I'll have anything to say for the next agenda.
Because I keep seeing CCC and I keep wondering, it's like, I know we're getting pushed that 13K. I was like,
Yeah, well, that was just, that was obviously not going to clean out the middle of the creek. That was just to sort of get it in shape to do something, like get the dead stuff out. I think that was the idea, right, Steve?
That's correct. And
well, that's where I'm thinking most of the dead stuff already got pulled out and the debris.
noted, I think the bigger question and maybe what you're pointing towards is the district or some entity is going to, besides the permits, is going to need a substantial amount of funding to, say, clean downstream of Lover's Lane or upstream of San Felipe Road. So we should be together pursuing some funding streams. I mean, even the reporting of a lake and stream bed alteration agreement, just the reporting for that activity was about, I think the last person said, minimum, or maybe told me $25,000 a year just to report those activities for that project, or to do a one-time project. It depends how much we want to clean up, but I think we need to identify a funding mechanism, and then, as you both have discussed, there's going to be permitting involved, and so it's kind of a two-phase. But go ahead.
To your point about I don't think all the dead stuff has been removed. I mean, maybe in the area that we've already cleaned, but south of the Lover's Lane Bridge, I mean, it's a wilderness.
There's still plenty of dead vegetation downstream of the bridge of Lover's Lane. That is correct, yes.
But thank you for definitely we'll be talking about it. Other agenda items? Okay, public comment on 5.9.
Yes, we have public comment in chambers.
Can we get we had discussed this last time a little bit, and I don't know where we left off, county and maintenance, bridge maintenance and stuff in the creek. Is that important to us? In other words, doing that debris removal around the bridges and such, and on an annual basis, is that something that we want to get into? Because I don't think it's been done in a long time, at least 10 years or more.
Yeah, so on that, well, should I stop?
I think, obviously we would want any cleaning that could be done, we would want, So what, I mean, do we need to make a formal request or, I
Well,
guess is the question.
no, actually, I think per a previous meeting, I did find an older, actually called Lake and Streambed Alteration Agreement. It covered perhaps 30 bridges. Unfortunately, it expired in 2015. Don't quote me on the year, please. But I did find the document. So I've been researching how to refresh that and look at new bridges, old bridges, and to move forward with that. And so yeah, so that's in the works. And we've even been talking with Public Works of purchasing our own excavator, which is just a big machine that has a claw and some things that's even been used on some of the recent cleanups. So the county's pursuing that. And we actually started even during the last 2023 storms to move forward on some of that. So yeah, so that's actually in the works already. So it doesn't need to be requested. So.
Okay, so it's not an item that I necessarily need to put on the agenda?
You
or-
can put on the agenda for status. Yeah.
Okay,
Just say
sure.
status,
No.
county, lake and stream alteration agreement. And yeah, that sounds good.
And then, do we want to put the PL 89 or something on the agenda to discuss that, since that would have such huge benefits for us if we were to get destroyed again?
I consider that part of the discussion regarding the Army Corps.
Okay,
So I don't think it needs a separate agenda item. And I think we're hoping that we're going to be meeting again with that same group of folks, and so, because we have some follow-up questions regarding 8499, so.
okay, and then my last question for possible agenda items would be, do we want to discuss the operations and maintenance manual?
Yeah, I already have that, actually, on the, yeah, I can look at the sample that they sent us.
Good.
So, all right. Is there any other public comment?
Yes, we have one more in chambers.
Agenda item. I'm thinking a little bit outside the box, meaning, let's say we have money ready, maybe through a program for infrastructure improvement or whatever. Let's say we have $1 million or $2 million, and without Fish and Game, we can't really do much. So can we wait until an emergency arises and then we have carte blanche and do what we need to do? Is that something that could we discuss that to see if that is an option? It's more like, will it ever flood again? And the answer is probably yes. So at that point, it would be probably very easy to get into, like what we did in 23 and 24, without Fish and Game.
Mm-hmm.
But the money would need to be ready, but I don't want to sidestep anything illegally or something like this. I'm just wondering if we can discuss it as a possible agenda item to see if we secure funding to then, on the next event, do what we need to do. That would be an agenda item, a possible one. And then just one little side comment to that 1973. I just wanted to, I just emailed it to you and Steve because I didn't have the other trustees' email address, so please forward it. That was during a meeting at, what's the place called? Yeah, Pacheco Water District up in Casa de Fruta, and one member there that is newly on the trustees, he works for the San Benito Water District. He came across this and he offered it to drop it in my mailbox. I received it and I went to the shop and had it scanned professionally because I don't have a scanner for those big pages. And then because digitally it's a lot easier to distribute versus then the hard copies. So that's where
Thank you.
the source is.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
All right. And then lastly, in announcements, I have one announcement. Last meeting, we talked about these meetings that they were having, the Pajaro River Watershed Resilience Program meetings, and they had one on Monday, March 10th. I was not able to go. This was in Aromas, even though I had signed up. But I did email the organizer, Marcus Mendiola, and he actually gave me the dates for the next 4 workshops. And 3 of them are going to be remote, in other words, virtual. So the next one is June 10th via Zoom. And I'm still not exactly sure what this is about. I mean, workshop 2, prioritize vulnerabilities, June 10th. And then there's dates. There's 3 is, the 3rd workshop is August 20th. That's in person. Then October 23rd is the 4th. That's remote. And then finally, next year on March 3rd, 2026, they are presenting the draft watershed resilience plan. So I guess that's the point of all of this, is to draft this watershed resilience plan. So anyway, if anyone is interested, remote is obviously easier in a lot of ways. The next one is June 10th. I can forward the information if anyone is interested. So. Are there any other announcements? All right. We don't need to do public comment on announcements, do we, Sean? Or do we?
No, you don't. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right. Then the only thing remaining is to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn this meeting of March 24th.
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the meeting is adjourned. We will see you on April 28th. Thank you.
April 28th.